Welcome back to Hardball. Following an election in which Republicans overwhelmingly lost African Americans, Latinos, and women generally, you think a picture like this, look at it, would be something Republicans would want to try to avoid. Yet these are the faces of the House committee chairmen, men selected by the Republican Party. I guess there's a little diversity there. White man with brown hair, white man with blonde hair, one white guy, old white guy, young white guy. But there's really not a whole lot of diversity as we know it. Do the Republican Party people in charge of the House, for example, did they learn anything from the 2012 election results? Not the big promotion that came before. Look who's laughing. Joan Walsh is editor-at-large at Salon and is an MSNBC great contributor. Her new book is What's the Matter with White People? That's pretty appropriate for tonight's discussion. And Tom Davis is a really good guy. He's what we used to call a moderate Republican, probably a principled Republican, former congressman from Virginia. But he's like the kind of people I grew up with in Pennsylvania who were Republicans, like Bill Scranton and people like that, and the first Schweiker. And anyway, Tom Ridge. My question to you, Joan, looking at that survey picture we put together, there's one up a graphic there. We should look at it again. All those dozens of committee chairs, you can actually call them chairmen in that case. You don't have to get confused whether they're chairs or not. They're all chairmen. What's wrong with the Republican Party? There they are. In fact, their top three leaders, Speaker, Majority Leader, Majority Whip, all men, white guys. I guess that's to be assumed in some cases. But in this Republican case, I must say, what is going on here?
It's almost like they're defiant, Chris. Like they're saying, you know, we're not going to listen to the election results. We're not going to change a darn thing we're doing. We think we're doing just fine. And we got here. This is the club. This is the way we want it. And this is the way we're going to keep it. I mean, where were the women? Where are the women that they were pushing out during the War on Women debate? Kathy McMorris-Rodgers, women who worked for them and defended their terrible, in my opinion, terrible policies. Where are these people now? And I also want to flip something around and point out that the House Democratic Caucus leadership is incredibly diverse, and it's that diverse leadership that's going to be defending the benefits of white seniors, most of whom voted for Mitt Romney. So there are so many ironies here, but it's the Democratic Party that's the face of America right now.
So you're saying that the last vestige of support for keeping all the entitlements which help the older people are the young, diverse black people and the members of Congress.
Women,
yeah, well,
yes.
That's so ironic. Yeah, well, that's ironically what our future is going to look like in terms of worker bees and retiree bees.
God bless
like in
them.
California, we're already seeing that. Yeah.
And sending the bill on to.
But no, you're playing defense here. No, Mr. Davis, don't be joining us as a commentator. You're playing defense here tonight. What is the story about your party? You were in that caucus. Do they see it like I get increasingly aware as you watch this show develop over the last, 18 years in different forms? I get increasingly aware that there's all white people at the table, if it ever happens. Yeah. Well, and on a Sunday show the same way, you get this sense that there's something wrong with this picture. Do Republicans have that sensitivity? Television's wonderful
that way. They do. She mentioned Kathy McMorris-Rodgers. Yeah. She's now the number 4 person in the leadership.
What do they do?
Chairman of the conference. She's chairman of the conference. They hold conferences every week. Yeah. They run the retreats. It's a legal. John Boehner was council chair.
Deeper and deeper.
No, they run the caucus meetings every week. She runs the caucus, decides what speakers come in, sets the agenda. Vice chairman of the caucus, Lynn Jenkins, a Republican woman from Kansas, secretary of the caucus, Virginia Fox.
What's a more important position? Chairman and vice chairman of the caucus, or Speaker of the House,
committee chair?
Speaker.
How about chairman of any of the committees? Any of the committees.
Caucus chairman trumps a committee chairmanship. I've been both. I've been in the leadership and I've been a committee chair. Look, you only really had one woman in contention for committee chairmanship, and that was Homeland Security with Candace Miller. And I've been through these things. They're knife fights inside. But McMorris-Rodgers beat a very able man, Tom Price, for the leadership. So when the caucus was allowed to speak, they selected the woman. Unfortunately, a
lot of the reason is more women are voting Democrat now. But look, a Bloomberg article points out the uncomfortable optics the very white Republican House is going to present. Quote, the visuals will be striking when the House debates whether to overhaul the country's tax code and considered ways to keep the costs of Social Security and Medicare under control. The white males of the Republican Party will be arguing to reduce benefits, while the women and minorities of the Democratic Party will make a case for keeping the nation's safety net where it is. Of course, the great irony is that women who may not have the same political power as men, historically, all live longer than men. You go to any old folks' home, there's usually one guy there.
Yeah.
And he's very
He's a
popular.
lucky guy, right?
He's
Yeah,
his ears are enormous, by the way, but he's all by himself there. And all these women are there because they tend to live longer, and therefore they do have an interest in Social Security and Medicare more than men do.
Well, and we're also poorer. At the end of our lives, at the middle of our lives, we're poorer as well. So we do rely on those safety net programs, and we need them. And women have been much more, going back to the Reagan election in 1980, Chris, I think that's when you saw the gender gap, because the social safety net was being threatened, and women do vote. It's not only or mainly abortion, choice, or contraception. It's also economic issues. So those come into play too. So I think we have today another data point where Stuart Stevens in the Washington Post, the top Romney strategist, brags that Romney won the votes of people who make over $50,000, as though people who make less than $50,000, A, don't matter as much, and B, didn't make up a majority, or don't make up a majority of the country. There's just a tin ear when it comes to issues of race and gender, but also class, that I don't think, we heard some good things in the days after the election.
I know, it's the we-they thing. It's the we-they thing.
Yes,
by the way, Reagan used to, it's we people were employed compared to those people. Those people aren't employed. Let me read you something from Matt Dowd.
Okay.
He wrote this on November 7th. What's happened with the Republicans is that they are, what's happened was, here it is on quote. Let's watch to it. Here it is.
What's happened with the Republicans is the Republican Party is a Mad Men party in a modern family America, and it just doesn't fit anymore.
A Mad Men party, early 60s in a modern family environment.
Well, they're bringing analog tools to digital campaigns. The voter turnout has changed dramatically as the underclass minorities are starting to vote at this point, and it's changed the whole electorate.
Look at your state, Tom. I know your state not as well as you, Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Northern Virginia has a lot of single women. They come to work in Washington. Some of them get married, some don't. They stay there. They work all their lives in Washington, but they live right across the river. They vote Democrat generally, right?
Yeah, particularly those who orient toward the city.
And what's that about? And how are you ever going to get them back?
Well, single women across the country have been voting more and more Democratic. Married women tend to vote Republicans. Look, I think you get them back with policies. You get it back. Optics are important, not just on committee chairman, but leadership. Republicans understand that. But it's a long slug. There's no silver bullet for us.
Should have ran Condoleezza Rice years ago, Ed Ron said. In California, you'd have the senator from California could have been Condi Rice. Yes, Joan, of course.
I just want to say, Mr. Davis, I just want to give you free advice. I don't think you should refer to the underclass. I mean, that's a really dated word, and that's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about a lot of working people working.
Economically, they have less. I'll use a more politically correct term. There's nothing.
Well, it's just a more accurate term. When we talk about people who make less than $50,000, a lot of those are middle class people too. Some of them are working
Well, that's
poor.
not where the voter turnout came. If you know your voter stats, though, it's really the people who are making even less than that, pulled out of the apartments. A lot of other groups that traditionally haven't voted. So it's not the middle class, really. It's the lower middle class folks who had not traditionally even participated.
You know what? That's
that have been
right.
registered and got out to vote.
They didn't used to participate, and they participate more now, and that's a wonderful thing for our country.
Yeah,
they
but
deserve
that's
to
not the
participate.
$50,000 class.
Okay.
That's my point.
Thanks, Tom.
No,
Okay.
thanks.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Okay.
Susan. I mean, he's
sure
a good guy, John. Thank you.
Giving
Anyway,
him free
thank you, John
advice.
Walsh. I'm just trying to help him out a little bit here. He came on the show. He's nice enough to do that.
Thank
You're
you.
always going to be here. It's a home game for you. We'll be right back.